Laker Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Lakers Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Sr. I hope all of your weeks are off to a fantastic start. Loaded show coming your way. Some injury updates on Trevor, Ariza, and Kendrick Nunn. Good injury news, by the way. Some information on LeBron James playing a little small ball center. But we start off today's show with Talen Horton-Tucker and some trade ideas thrown out there by a podcast called Lakers Legacy Podcast. And I thought the trade ideas that they explored could help the Lakers roster if they elected to trade a player who they signed to a pretty big contract during free agency. So up to this point, Talen Horton-Tucker averaging a little less than 12 points per game, 5.5 rebounds. He's only shooting about 38% from the floor, not reaching expectations in that regard. But this is a young player, one of the few young players and assets on this roster who can do a little bit of everything. But because he signed that $30+ million contract over the offseason, he cannot be traded until December 15th. And if the Lakers were to move on from him, you're probably asking, well, what about the other Lakers wing options? They are loaded at the wing spot. The unfortunate thing here is they don't have a lot of young players on this team that they can move forward with, and they don't have a lot of young wings on the roster either. LeBron James, he's going to turn 37 years old in December. That's coming up right around the corner. I think Kent Bazemore is a scrub. He plays wing too, though. He's 32 years old. Talen Horton-Tucker sitting there at 21. Carmelo Anthony, he's really on the back end of his career, even though he's in the running for NBA sixth man. Wayne Ellington, you haven't got to see much from him as he's dealt with injuries this year, still a sharpshooter at 34 years old. Then you're looking at guys like Trevor Ariza, Malik, Kendrick Nunn. Those latter two guys are younger in age, but the point here being, if you want to look into the future, Talen Horton-Tucker, one of the young lone pieces on this roster, that's why he has value, and that's why the Lakers signed this guy to that contract in NBA free agency. Of course, they want to win now, but they also have to project into the future just a little bit. Now, if you ask me, I think the Lakers should have traded away Talen Horton-Tucker for Kyle Lowry leading into the NBA trade deadline last year. I thought it was a big mistake that they didn't do that. I thought they overcompensated then this offseason when they then decided to trade for Russell Westbrook. The play should have been to trade for Kyle Lowry. They didn't do that, and instead they overpaid for Russell Westbrook. That trade has been won by the Washington Wizards, and then they also decided to keep Talen Horton-Tucker, which is a big reason why they didn't pull the trigger on that trade for Kyle Lowry. But you take a look at some of these trade ideas thrown out there by the Lakers Legacy Podcast, and some of them I really, really like. And they talked about several. We're only highlighting a few. But those of you who are complaining, oh, these trades aren't realistic, this would never happen. Smart businesses and smart organizations always look into the future, and they're always looking for ways to improve their roster, especially considering the current status of Los Angeles, because LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the core of this team is a little bit older, and they're ready to win right now. So if a trade can be made to improve this roster, which is really a 500 team up to this point, it's up to Rob Pelinka and general manager LeBron James to at least explore some of those opportunities. So there's this one where the Trailblazers would receive THT and Kent Bazemore. Really the notable player in there for Los Angeles is THT, and the Lakers would get back Robert Covington. Now, he's making a lot of money, but he's a very good defender and a guy who can be relied upon to knock down some three-point baskets. So a modern-day 3-and-D guy. How about this trade idea with the Oklahoma City Thunder? Derek Favors Lou Dort to Los Angeles. Lou Dort really intrigues me. He's been going off over the last couple of weeks, and his development overall as a player on both ends has been awfully impressive for me. The Thunder would get back Talen Horton-Tucker. They could kind of use him in that guard wing role. Another trade idea. This time it includes the Detroit Pistons. Lakers get Jeremy Grant, who finished second last year in the Most Improved Player of the Year race behind Julius Randle, former Laker who had a marvelous year last year. The Pistons would get back a pretty sizable package. Kendrick Nunn, Talen Horton-Tucker, two of the young players on this team, as we talked about, as well as Avery Bradley, who joined Los Angeles after he didn't make the 15-man roster with the Golden State Warriors. The common theme here is these are all kind of role players or secondary options that could really help the Lakers this year. A little bit offensively, but mostly at the wing spot in terms of defense, because they have been picked apart and they have been targeted at the wing spot defensively because it just isn't a good Lakers defensive team right now. So, Laker Nation, I look at all these trade ideas. We talk about them. What would you do if you're Rob Pelinka? Would you trade THT or would you keep him? Make sure you get your votes in down below. Type T for trade, type K for keep. Once again, chime in and sound off in the comment section down below. Last week on the Lakers Report, we told you a bunch about a lot of those Black Friday deals that were going on. Well, Black Friday is past, but now it's Cyber Monday, and the holiday season is here, folks. So treat yourself, a friend, a loved one, or somebody that you care about with a fresh Lakers hoodie, thanks to today's presenting sponsor, Fanatics. Right now, you can get this hoodie on your screen 50% off by using that link down below. It's chatsports.com/Laker hoodie. Once again, chatsports.com/Laker hoodie. This hoodie was once $70. It's on sale 50% off for $35. That link is in the description as well as the comment section of this video. Want to pivot to some Lakers injury news, and finally, in a year where there has been a lot of negative injury news with Los Angeles, we're starting to turn the corner a little bit. Let's get to an update on Trevor, Ariza, and Kendrick Nunn. Could they be back soon? Neither of these players have played yet this season, and I think Los Angeles didn't have the best planning in mind when they brought in Trevor Ariza, expected him to play a pretty critical role, which is kind of weird because he's older. Not going to go as far as to say he's washed yet, but he's a little bit older. There's no question about that. I do think they could use his defensive intangibles as well as his experience and the offensive outpouring from Kendrick Nunn. Frank Vogel speaking about these players on the Lakers injury report saying this, quote, "They're going to have the opportunity, and obviously you can't make any true evaluations until you see what they look like with our group. We signed them to be contributors, and when they get healthy, they'll get the opportunity to play for us." Kendrick Nunn is a guy who I am intrigued by. I think that with the Miami Heat, up and down kind of tenure with Miami, a journeyman college player who played for Oakland, played for Illinois, was overlooked when it came to the NBA draft, but when he got minutes, this guy can definitely score, and that's what he did in Miami. Last year with the Heat, didn't get a bunch of minutes, got DNP'd some, but the common theme with Kendrick Nunn, he could put the biscuit in the basket. 14.5 points per game, 2.5 dimes, shot around 48.5% from the floor, and 38% from distance. Again, what have the Lakers been missing? It's defense along the perimeter, and in addition to that, a premier or at least reliable three-point contingent on this team. As for Trevor Ariza, really didn't play at all last year, was a COVID opt-out a couple of years ago, a classic 3-and-D guy who was really ahead of his time. This guy's been in the league for a minute and gives you decent size at 6'8", 215. What he lacks in athleticism, because he is older, in his mid to late 30s, he does make up for it with some experience and tangibles and him just being a gritty player. Who do you think will make a better impact among these two guys? Is it Kendrick Nunn, type KN? Is it Trevor Ariza, type TA? Once again, let me know down in the comment section down below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel while you're at it, because we're killing it here on the Lakers Report. We are approaching 40,000 subscribers. As one of the largest Lakers news and rumors channels out there. A big reason for that, we're consistent. We have you covered with all of the Lakers news and rumors. When breaking news happens, we have you covered within the hour, and we cover this basketball team all year round in an entertaining and informative fashion. So hit that red subscribe button down below, or open up a separate browser, let this video play, and go to youtube.com/LakersTV. As for LeBron James playing center, this is fascinating stuff. As producer Coop is about to show you with the graphic coming up, small ball basketball is the new wave, and it looks as though LeBron could be playing a little bit more center, potentially. Lakers played LeBron at the center for the third straight game against the Detroit Pistons when they went with that small ball lineup. Dwight Howard was a DNP in the win. I think you really only want to play him depending on the matchup and what the other team is trotting out there. For instance, Philadelphia 76ers put out Andre Drummond. You probably want to go with Dwight Howard to guard him because he'd do a good job matching up with both physical bodies down low. If you face a team that plays a small ball five who can stretch out to the three-point arc, Dwight Howard would certainly get picked apart there and then maybe get picked apart in that pick and roll. Now, LeBron has played 1% of his total minutes this season at center, if we're looking at the deep dive analytical numbers, but Frank Vogel did expand a little bit on LeBron's role, I also think it's smart for Anthony Davis to play at the 5 because he presents so many mismatches on both ends of the floor because of his athleticism. But Vogel on LeBron playing center, this is part of our evolution as a team and learning what our identity looks like. There's a lot more space for Russ. Bron has space to be a roller to the basket, which was effective. We just have more switchability on the defensive side of the ball. I do think that's something we're going to grow, and we'll be a part of our team going forward. So everybody wants to rip Frank Vogel. One thing I'll give him credit for, in addition to him having to deal with a plethora of injuries ever since they won the championship a couple years ago in the NBA bubble, is that he is always willing to look in the mirror and make some adjustments. And as I said earlier, thanks to producer Coop, who made this point when we were chopping it up, talking some Laker basketball prior to the show, small ball is the new wave. And while LeBron has only played 1% of his minutes this year at center, it looks as though that could be effective moving forward, and maybe he could get more minutes at center moving forward, which honestly could help preserve his body come playoff time, where you need this guy to play basically every minute except for 5 or 10 any given night during the playoffs. And what I found and what I kind of realized and thought when I watched LeBron play the 5 is, yes, it does open up a lot of spacing for Russ, for Bron, for other players, spaces the floor just a bit because LeBron can trickle out to the corner or the wings. This is a freakishly athletic lineup as well. And the Lakers have just been a weak defensive team, and LeBron at center might help them with switchability, with floor spacing, with also being a better defensive unit, speaking of those switches. As for the role for Dwight Howard, I kind of alluded to this earlier. At this point in his career, and Dwight Howard deserves credit for elongating his career, providing longevity with it, because it looked several years ago like he was washed, but he's kind of been able to reinvent himself. Frank Vogel continued on by saying this: I will say that Dwight Howard didn't play tonight. This is that game against the Pistons. It's like a new rivalry in the NBA, by the way, after that Isaiah Stewart hit to the face. We made a decision that if we're going to look at this smaller second unit, that one of our centers would play, not both. It's not always going to be DJ. Sometimes it'll be Dwight. You could see Dwight in the starting lineup with DJ being the third center or whatnot. We'll just continue to evaluate that going forward. Now, if you want to pick between the two, I'm pretty sure Laker Nation will side with Dwight Howard over DeAndre Jordan, even though Howard is the older player. But the point here being, it all depends on the matchup any given night. And it depends on what the opposing team trots out there in terms of their starting 5, but also their reserves as well. Before I get out of here, one more question for you, because if you're new to us here at Chat Sports, first of all, thanks for watching this deep into the video. It means you like what you're seeing, maybe watching my face, I don't know. But also, we're also about our audience interaction here. So do you like LeBron at the 5? Simple question. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Hit that red subscribe button down below. And as always, thanks for watching the Lakers Report.